I would definitely say that reminds me of the famous, the Swiss psychiatrist, the Carl Jung, who once said, the medicine cure diseases, but only the doctor can cure patients. And here is another doctor. This afternoon, we are going to hear him. And before I would let the mic on for him, let me just introduce him briefly as possible, but it is not certainly possible for me to introduce him briefly, but maybe, I will try my best. Dr. Sarman Singh, retired as Director of Chief Executive Officer of All India Institute of Medical Science, Bhopal, in November 2021. After more than 3 years of outstanding work at AIIMS Bhopal, after retirement, he has joined the Professor of Indian Institute of Science, Education and Research, Bhopal. Before that, he had worked at the All India Institute of Medical Science, New Delhi for 30 years in various faculty positions. He is an able hospital administrator, a loved teacher, and dedicated researcher of international repute. Dr. Singh brought AIIMS Bhopal to new heights during COVID-19 times. AIIMS Bhopal has done outstanding public service under his leadership. In fact, this I can vouch. I have heard it from the many quarters that, sir, salute to you, that you are the man behind the show, sir. We are grateful to hear you today. Dr. Singh has 7 patents to his credit, and 1 technology has been commercialized and taken up by the Government of India in its Kala Ajar elimination program. He is fellow of more than 7 national and international academics, including Royal College of Pathologists, Royal Society of Chemists, and member of more than 20 national and international scientific bodies. He is editor-in-chief of Journal of Laboratory of Physicians, academic editor of Medicines, etc., etc. He has been awarded several national and international scientific academic bodies for his outstanding contribution. The most prestigious awards are, because I know that you have got many, but I would reduce, though this is injustice to you, I know, but because of the paucity of time, I'll just take few famous ones. Pride of India Award in Public Relations Society of India, COVID-19 related work 2021. Professor T.D. Chugh Award, National Academy Medical Science, India 2019. Dr. S.C. Dutt Memorial Oration Award, Indian Association of Veterinary Psychologists 2020. NAMS Amritsar Oration Award, National Academy of Medical Science, India 2019. AIIMS Research Excellence Award, Best Published Work in New Delhi 2016. Chikitsa Ratna Award, Delhi Medical Association 2014. B.C. Rai Award, Medical Council of India 2017. Professor Singh has successfully undertaken more than 46 research projects. Sir, I'll ask you someday privately that how these 46 research projects was completed in such span of time. From various national and international funding agencies, including the Department of Biotechnology, Government of India, Indian Council of Medical Research, Government of India, Department of Science and Technology, Government of India, Department of Health Research, Government of India, World Health Organization, National Institute of Health, USA, from the European Commission. He has guided 30 PhD, DM scholars, 30 MD resident doctors, more than 40 MSc students. He has written 6 books, 46 book chapters on more than 350 research papers. With all this, I would be delighted to invite Professor Sarman Singh to throw light upon the subject, which is quite relevant as on date. Over to you, Professor.
Thank you, Patnaik Saab. Thank you very much. So nice of you for kind words. And I am really delighted to see my senior colleague, Dr. Mahapatra. I also would like to thank all organizers and Dr. Ramchandani, who actually introduced to RBM. So thank you all. And I am really, humbled with your kind words. So I think Dr. Mahapatra has already deliberated a lot of things, but few things I would like to just let me share the screen. Yes, that. All right. So I think little bit, I will Omicron. Because Omicron is a baby of original coronavirus. So obviously, I will have to take you, even though I am sure that everybody is so educated these days, but I thought that no, it is always better to remind each and everyone, because we are fighting with such a disease. So I will take you to about more than 100 years back. In 1918, there was another virus which still goes on. So we know with the name of the Spanish flu, and that also killed crores of the people around the world. At that time, fortunately or unfortunately, we were not having the flights and that kind of thing. So even though it killed many people, and including from India, lakhs from India, but obviously the spread was slow, not like these days. Within few days, whole world is infected, because thanks to, or rather courtesy to our air travels. So that was the situation, but obviously that took about 3 years to come down. And then after that, almost there was 90 years, nothing of that sort, but obviously various bacterial infection and other diseases, including the smallpox, and they kept on coming. But probably this was the biggest epidemic which engulfed the whole world, and that's why we call it pandemic, greatest pandemic before this COVID. So that was there, and obviously that was the time when many of the, why I am showing this slide, because during this pandemic, our learned scientists, doctors, treating physicians, they taught many things which now we are using in corona time also. The physical distancing, of course you can't see here in this because the hospital is full, there were no beds available, but you can see that some of the people, they are wearing masks. So probably about 100 years ago also we had the concept of the mask, because by then it was known that the infection is spreading through the respiratory route. So that was the only weapon we were having, because that time we were not having antivirals, there were no drugs available, there were no monoclonals, there were no even the vaccines. So the only method was physical distancing and the masks. And now after about more than 103 years, some intelligent treating physicians in Wuhan city of China, they realized that in November 2019, that some of the patients, particularly from a particular area, they are coming with very peculiar symptoms, and they are having suddenly they have started pouring to their clinics. They were all having fever and cough, which was most important, even though from other areas it was nothing like that. And then they were also having breathlessness, means difficulty in breathing and kind of things. And then when they investigated these patients, they were having very peculiar radiological investigation findings, so what we call ground glass appearance. So X-ray were very different. And these doctors, they realized that this is not the normal thing. This is not a common cold or nothing like that. This is something very unique. And this information was
Sir, your voice is not audible.
There is a break.
I think it got disconnected from the Singh side.
I'm connecting.
Now, sir, you are audible.
Connected.
Tapas bhai, I think he is mute himself. It seems like that. can you ask for the unmute?
I am sorry, this was some glitch was there, and I think what happened because probably you couldn't see the. So there was a Zoom got disconnected. Now can you hear me?
Yes, yes, certainly, sir.
So I'm sorry, this slide probably you were able to hear me about this slide or not?
But please share the slides. Sir.
Your slide is not visible. Can you share it again?
Okay. Can you see now?
Yes, yes, we can see.
I think that there are some issues. I am trying to, because once it got disconnected, so again it reconnected, and then it is creating little problem for me.
Difficult, sir.
Let me do it again. Probably there is some problem. Yes. I'm very sorry about that.
Now it is visible, sir.
Now
Can
it
you
is
see
coming.
now?
Yeah.
Now it is visible.
Slide is coming now.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. I am extremely sorry about that. So anyway, I was discussing that in Wuhan city, probably we discussed. So in Wuhan city, some intelligent doctors, they realize that some of the patients, they are coming from particular area and they are having very unique kind of clinical manifestations, and they were having all cough and fever, and then when they were investigated using X-ray, they were lungs were almost gone. So what we called in medical terminology the ground glass appearance, and then they reported it the world's very well-known journal, that's the Lancet. And then we came to know with the name of this disease what we know, and the peculiarity was that all these patients, they were from a particular area. Either they visited this area or they work in this meat market in China. So here you can see that how the China meat markets they look like, and that is the origin of probably considered to be of this virus, that probably it came from the bats, and from bats to pangolin. Pangolin is a animal which is the meat of pangolin is considered to be delicacy in China. So that was the reason, and probably that is the primarily, even though this was questioned and America and other countries, they kept on asking that it is not the correct thing, but nevertheless, animal origin of these viruses from the bat to intermediate host, that is from camel. Earlier we knew with the name of Middle East respiratory syndrome virus, MERS, then SARS-CoV-1, that was from the cat in 2003, and then of course in 2019 from pangolin. So this came like that. And then obviously this was all these viruses, even though they belong to the SARS family, but they have a peculiarity that they infect the lungs. And I will come to that. This is Omicron is a little different. So all these are having by the name of the, in the last, if you see the SARS-1 or SARS-2 or MERS, in the last they are having RS. RS means severe respiratory syndrome. So respiratory syndrome is the main focus of these all viruses, but not in Omicron. I will come to that. So sometimes, how we call it, good or bad. So this disease was obviously in February 2020. This was named as the COVID, and the causative agent is known as SARS-CoV-2 by International Committee of the Taxonomy of the Viruses. So these are the viruses. So all viruses, they belong to coronaviruses. There are 39 viruses. So that is the reason that, everybody should be educated enough that these are the not new viruses, but they are causing new disease and they have got mutated. And then they belong to beta family of the, alpha, beta, gamma, delta, you can see. So this is not the viruses, but they are within the virus SARS, here you can see. So within the SARS they have, and that's why some intelligent people, sometimes they ask me the question, why every mutation or variant we WHO opens, but there is a, if you taxonomically, if you see, there is a B. So B is because, it belongs to beta family. So B is like that. That is the reason. So they belong to this family. And then, as I was saying, that they are, very poor, proofreading. So because being the RNA virus, they do not have the proofreading. Usually what we have, our DNA, whenever we multiply, our body multiplies when, our zygote is formed, our kids are formed. So we have very, robust, the proofreading. And that's the reason that human's child is human only. But in RNA viruses, particularly of this virus, sometimes there is a misreading and then sometimes there is a mutation. So this is important to understand to you that why so many mutations, so many variants, they are coming in corona. So all RNA viruses, they behave like that because they don't have, because they are also not typically living organisms like bacteria and other organisms or, higher animals we have. They are very rudimentary. So just like a few proteins and some, nucleotides. And this is the spike protein. I am sure that, you might have heard that spike protein, common newspapers that we keep on, reading. So this is the spike protein which comes into contact of the body's host cell. And then once it is there, so contacts this, here you can see lock and key system. So this, say for instance, this is the virus. So virus has a key. We have the receptors, we have lock-like structures on our cells. So the key, it opens this door of the cell, and by putting its key, and key is a spike protein. So then, lock is opened and then it goes inside. And then after going inside, it produces new viruses. And then obviously the various, new virions, they are formed. And so far, Dr. Mahapatra also mentioned that various mutations, they have happened. Some of these mutations, they are of consequence, some are not. But if you see, as I said in the beginning, that, these are RNA viruses, so they have multiple mutations. They keep on mutating and they don't have, very good proofreading. So here you can see there are so many mutations they have happened, but only some of the mutations, they are of consequence, not all. So why mutations they do happen? Because sometimes virus tries to adapt in the animals and various animal species also. So animal to like humans, dogs, cat, lions. So all these viruses, they have been found to be. And the Omicron is considered to be probably that, the Delta virus remained for a very long time in the whole world, and probably some of the animals by accidental, because, many of the vaccines, they were being produced, many drugs were being produced. So probably whether during the studies vaccine development or drug development or pathogenicity studies, these animals were infected or naturally, because we know that some of the people are so pet friendly, and sometimes some of the animals they kiss also. So probably some of these animals they got infected, and from animals the delta went to animals, and then probably from animal it has come again to the humans. So that is the speculation, but this is very difficult to prove. So we know that last year there were only 3 major variants which were considered to be of significance, but now there are many more variants. So these were in last year when we talk about alpha, beta, gamma, and then in India we produced another virus, which was delta, which created the whole world panic situation. Now we I would like to reiterate what Dr. Mahapatra said, that we these days, because the information is so common these days, and that sometimes it is dangerous, but many times it is useful. So probably last year also we didn't learn from the literature or the data from the whole world. If you see, this graph shows that the other than India, all countries they were having the increase in the cases, and we were probably didn't prepare ourselves, and then in April and May we had a lot of things. And that's what why I am repeating. Dr. Mahapatra said that last week we had a very high number of the COVID cases in USA. The figure was something 10 lakh plus. So on top of that, if you talk about the France and UK, even in USA 10 lakh, and if you compare the very small population of UK and France, 4 lakh something. In the France, the percentage or number of cases, this is very huge. And why I am re-emphasizing this, because the world teaches us that be prepared. Nobody is immune to this. So if it is happening in one country, it can happen in another country. And then we saw that in India also, without learning from others, we had this second wave, and probably the third wave. At that time, everybody knows it, so I will not go into details. Second wave, we have almost every family or relatives, we have witnessed that. And what we did, mistake we did, that we were the government and we all experts, we kept on advising that please do mass masking, maintain your hand hygiene, keep physical distancing, but nobody bothered about that. Elections were also there, so political, religious, and all kind of the crowd were there. We in India, we have very preliminary eating or sneezing or coughing etiquettes, so we don't practice that. Ideally, during COVID times, I always emphasize that please don't eat face-to-face sitting. If at all you have to eat together, please make your seats in the same direction, not face-to-face. And then of course the vaccination. So vaccination, as Dr. Mahapatra already has said, so I will not emphasize on that, but definitely 2 vaccines are very important. But nothing was, there were various explanations were given for these, because there were people say that there were fatigue, because they were most of the time, almost 1 year was there. So whole 2020, they kept on wearing masks, and there was a compliance fatigue, and then they got relaxed. The economy also government wanted revival, and then mobility for urban to rural and rural to urban all happened for business regions and other things. So all that led to, and on top of that, mutations. So Delta mutation or any other mutations, which are very nasty mutations, they keep on happening. Many, Brazil, Peru, India, UK, all these, mutations, they had happened. Because today we will not discuss all these mutations, what they have, created havoc in the respective countries. We know we have witnessed the Delta in India, but similar kind of, havocs, many of the countries they have, faced. So now today probably the emphasis is only on the Omicron, so I will go to that. Now, as Dr. Mahapatra also said that, basically the first report was published on 26th November from South Africa, but this patient was not from South Africa. This came from the Cameroon, another country. And what they realized that, as I was already mentioning that, this was having about 50 mutations. And 30 mutations were itself in the, what we call the, receptor binding protein, which if you remember, I demonstrated you the lock and key system. So that lock and key, the most of mutations, they are here in the RBD protein. So what it does that the binding is so crucial that earlier viruses, like whether it is alpha, beta or delta, so there are few viruses, they will try to adhere to this receptor. So that was typical demonstration, but not all viruses, they will be, sufficiently or avidly bind to the receptor. And what will happen that, our immune system will take care. So many viruses, they will try to bind that protein, what we call RBD or the lock and key system, but not many viruses, they will be, successful. But what has happened in the Omicron, because there are so many mutations, so the binding has become very pertinent. So what it has made, as Dr. Mahapatra was also saying, that it is more than 5 times more infectious than the Delta virus, even though it is less pathogenic. So what has happened that in Delta virus, say for example, there were about more than 1,000 original virus was studied, and they found that about 2,000 viruses you must inhale to get infected. In Delta, it was again more than twice more infectious. It is not that, it is, if you compare the 2 lines, one line is smaller, obviously if you draw another smaller line, it becomes bigger. So if you compare with the Omicron, it is less infectious, but if you compare with the Alpha, it was more infectious. So what was happening, it was requiring about 1,000 virions. So original, about 2,000 viruses you have to have, in your respiratory system, you will get infected. In Delta, it became about 1,000, and Omicron, it has become few hundreds only, because the binding is so important. So that is making lot of difference. And these are, if you see, the Delta was here, and then this has emerged all together here. So this has left all these viruses. So this has emerged, and these are the changes in the protein. So this is very, very important and leading to the ability of the lock and key system. This is a very recent paper. It will be published. In fact, I got this copy being the member of that society. So this will be published this Saturday. So this is the protein. It shows that how it is making difference, and this infectiousness is making a lot of difference. How it is making difference, as Dr. Mahapatra said, that you can imagine that unlike Delta, the Omicron, this is the cell, our body cell. So the millions of the viruses in single cell. You can imagine, you can appreciate this. And then what is happening, that is just so much overburden. This is the cell, our macrophage or monocyte, what we call. So here, tentacles, these are the tentacles. They try to our immune system to defend us from various organisms. So here you can see this is trying, but this has been just like a honey bee. So all the viruses, they are attaching to this cell. And then ultimately what happens, that it tries its chemicals, they try to kill the virus, but they are not successful. Ultimately the cell ruptures. So here you can see this is the nucleus, and this is the cell wall here. And these are the full of almost, just like, all viruses, they are inside the cells. So ultimately the virus lyses or kills the cell and ruptures it. And then again, millions of the viruses, they do happen. So why Omicron is of so concern? Because this is a scientific slide, because obviously here, not all those who are, want to, they can definitely understand. But I would not like to spend much time on this, because it's a public address. So Omicron, why it is important? The most important is immune escape. So what is immune escape? That these mutations, they have happened here, if you can see in the spike protein. And why we are having the concern here, that we developed vaccines, we developed monoclonal antibodies, and then I am sure that many of you might have, or your relatives tocilizumab was very common, and then similarly on that line, cocktail was also developed. Many monoclonal antibodies, they have been developed. So these are the clones. The antibodies are known with the clones. So the various clones are here. These monoclonal antibodies, they have been in the market, but when these were tested against the Omicron virus, they were found to be of no consequence. They cannot kill the virus. So even the cocktail of two monoclonal antibodies was not successful. So this is very, very important. So the vaccine, ultimately vaccines also produce the cells, the immune system. So that was also not effective. Also, what we found that if you compare the original, the pangolin, original alpha, what we say, and then delta and the Omicron, so you will find that the most important is obviously cough is there and nasal discharge. So sometimes the nasal discharge can be watery, or sometimes very thick, and sometimes your nose may be just stuffy only here. So this was, of course, cough was there in delta in almost all. Fever is almost in all, but it was more in the delta variant, and it is less here. Body ache is considered to be, it was comparatively less in these, and here it is more. The another important thing is that delta, within few days you became quite sick. So obviously there was no time to say that I am having body ache, because this was having the problem. Then sore throat is most important. Many of these patients, they are coming only with the sore throat, nothing else. The reason is that the Omicron, this mutant, which the virus wanted to infect the more population, but somehow because of the, as I was saying, proofreading, it did some mistake. So it is probably not very beneficial to the virus. And this is not going to lungs. So this is not able to go to lungs, and it is remaining into our upper respiratory tract, what we call. So, this area. So nose and glottis, up to glottis, and bronchus. This is not going to endothelial system of the lungs. So that is the reason. This is something very good, because of this region, this is not creating respiratory or breathlessness or respiratory distress or lung pathology. X-rays are perfectly fine. There is no oxygen requirement. So this is the reason that it is limiting, the infection is limited by the upper respiratory tract. It is not going to lungs, unlike obviously the virus, which was the Delta virus, which was multiplying only directly into the lungs, directly within 2 days or so, the whole lungs, they were gone. Then you can have other complaints. You might have heard in newspapers, the Delta had all sort of manifestations, but so far, fortunately, remains all the manifestations. If you see, they are only of the upper respiratory tract, not the like brain fog or lungs issues. They are not there. So and then there is no ground glass appearance, no loss of smell or appetite, cardiac changes. So far, they have not yet been, documented, but slowly and slowly, more and more manifestations, they will be recorded. But so far, it is the reason that, probably people think that it is less, virulent, because it is not going to our vital organs, like lungs. It is not going to our small intestine, which was creating many of these patients during Delta time. They had bleeding and diarrhea and all kind of things, brain, injuries, and, kidney injuries, lung injuries, of course. So these were the things. So this is something very important. So despite this good news that it is not going towards down, and it is obviously not fatal, but the important thing is, as Dr. Mahapatra also said, the fatality, what we say, virulence or fatality means to power to kill the people or to the patient is less than 1%, 0.3 to 0.1% is variable. So even then, imagine that, we are having, because it is so highly infectious, 135 crore people, if, less than 1%, they are infected and they get fatal kind of, involvement, then it will be crores. So that is the concern for India. So we cannot afford to be complacent, even if it is less than 1%, but it is so highly infectious. Of the 135 crore people, if less than 1% or even 0.1% also, then it will make the total number will be more than 1 crore. So that the cumulative total number of the patient is worrisome. So therefore, even though many of the governments like Maharashtra and other governments, they are opening the schools and other things, they want that let it be open and let the herd immunity develop. Last week, the UK government has also said that no mask, no compulsory vaccination. But I think these are premature things. I would not emphasize much on the booster dose of vaccine, but I would definitely like that till the number of cases goes very low from the world, we continue to at least to wear the good quality of mask, preferably N95 or triple mask, cloth mask or double mask. That very important. We must have the hand hygiene. That is extremely important, because the vaccines are not doing their job. As we know that the antibodies produced by our immune system, they are not respected by the Omicron micron because of the mutations it has developed in the spike protein. So if you see that data which has come, and of course daily papers are being published, so they are coming. But if you see the last week's data in USA, so if the patients are not vaccinated in India and similarly in USA also, there are many patients those never wanted to get vaccinated. So the most of these hospitals, they are saying that earlier in the beginning we had most of these patients, they were unvaccinated, and later on when the more and more data came, then it was the data was analyzed, and this was realized that only 25% patients, they were having no vaccine, and they were of course they got hospitalized or they got PCR tested. It was also found that 75%. So you can imagine that the protection was only 25% if they are not vaccinated. If they are having single vaccination, then about 35%. So you can imagine 10% marginal only. And then if they are having two vaccines, then it is almost, you can say almost double. So not vaccinated and 2-dose vaccinated. So 25% protection means 75% people will get infection if they are not vaccinated. If they are having both the vaccines, about 45% people, they will still get infected, what we call breakthrough infections. So that is important. And then, after 6 months, if you take booster dose, Pfizer data, this is a Pfizer data, specific company sponsored data. So then they say that, only 25% will get still infected and 75% they will be protected. But again, the data are coming, and I think that, Dr. Mahapatra touched it. In the government system, sometimes you cannot say very boldly, but it is a fact that none of the Indian companies, they have shared the clear data. And particularly the Bharat Biotech, I will endorse what Dr. Mahapatra said, that the Bharat Biotech data was always full of suspicions. And that was the reason that WHO, this was probably the last vaccine which WHO approved with lot of hesitation and lot of international pressure. The reason was because the data sharing was very poor, very poor. They never disclosed that, in the beginning, who were the placebo given, to whom placebo was given, and to whom the actual vaccine was given. Ideally, when you are doing any clinical trial, you should, disclose that, these were the patients who got only placebo. And obviously it was a pandemic. And therefore, after completion of the trial, this was ethically correct that all patients, all volunteers, rather, I use the word in medical terminology is used volunteers. So when all placebo, injected volunteers, they should have got the true vaccine, which was not given. So that was, because these days everything is, given preference because in the name of vaccine and pandemic, but sometimes these issues, they will emerge. So this is the sometimes very important. Not many people can, appreciate that, but sometimes, because as I said, the pandemic is going on, so you don't want to make this kind of issues, because at least they are giving a vaccine to us. But obviously in the science, you have to be very transparent. And therefore, I would again, request all the people that again, as we kept on doing, kept on saying, kept on preaching to all that, the best methods are obviously mass masking. Still, I would say mask, hand hygiene, physical distancing of any kind, the gathering, they should be discouraged, political, religious, anything. And then, of course, again, the eating behavior and the gatherings. And then, of course, at least 2 doses they must take, and including the children. If you see some of the data, I will see very recent, yesterday only data I got. So I will share that slide also. So in children, the number of admissions are increasing. So obviously now government has done good thing that, now they are vaccinating 15 to 18, but of course, only this, there are some question, people are saying that why only 15 to 18. The reason basically is that this is the age group which are going out of their home. They are obviously the most vulnerable group, because they are also preparing for NEET, JEE and other entrance examinations. They are also preparing for the to go abroad and other kind of things. So they're probably, and maybe slowly and slowly government will like to try to vaccinate other age groups of children also, but definitely as of now, this is the group. So probably, I think with that, I would like to thank you very much once again. And this is so nice to interact with you. And I would again re-emphasize that definitely the most important thing is that how to protect yourself, including the vaccine and of course the other things. So I think with that, I would like to, Dr. Mahapatra also like to take some questions, and I would also like to take some questions if you have.
Certainly. Thank you so very much, Professor Sarman Singh. And you were saying something, Professor?
No. I was not
Okay.
saying. I was just only saying that I rushed quite fast because my some internet some glitches because of that. So I am sorry about that. Yeah.
Sir, I can only say one thing. The perfect thing comes only with the imperfections. So you did a wonderful job, I must say, and it is such a wonderful way of presenting it in a capsule form, which is hardly you get it in every day, either in the news channel or in the newspapers, you hardly get it. This is absolutely insightful. I mean, everybody would agree with me. So, that is what I was saying. The hardest thing in life is actually to which bridge to cross and which bridge to burn. And after hearing this, I must say we are all enlightened. And at least if